I.O.T, powering the digital economy. Brought to you by Schneider Electric.
Travel is a fundamental part of 21st century life. In fact, a recent Deloitte study found that the average European made 923 journeys and travelled 35,000 kilometres a year.
Today, there are intricate networks of roads and railways crisscrossing our planet. Vehicles of all kinds are expected to deliver a seamless consumer journey.
But ground transportation is changing. Digital tech is bringing autonomous cars, connected vehicles, and user-centered mobility services which will transform the travel experience.
In this program, I'll be looking at the way a major car manufacturer is using digital tech to transform the cars of the future. I'll find out how a disruptive business is literally taking travel to new heights. And we'll go to Paris to meet an expert who'll tell us about the regulations these companies must adhere to.
And finally, we'll explore the digital innovations coming down the line which will change the way we travel even more. BMW is a car and motorbike manufacturer whose headquarters are based here in Munich, in Germany. And in fact, they're designed to look like the head of a four-cylinder engine. Now, the company in 2016 sold more than 2.25 million cars, and its first fully electric model, the BMW i, was first sold back in 2013.
I've come to BMW Welt, the Customer Experience Centre, to meet Jens Monsees, Vice President, Strategy, Digitalisation, BMW Group. Jens began his career at BMW and worked with Google for 8 years before rejoining BMW in 2016.
What do you think is the main changes that BMW customers are seeing because of digital technologies and the evolutions you're now creating?
So we were always front runners in terms of innovation. For example, with electrified vehicles, we start them first with connected. We were starting it first. And so I think that here in the DNA of BMW is always this customer focus. And the only thing that is now maybe changing is that we merge the digital experience and the hardware experience to one overall experience together. On the one hand side, driving with all the precision and the dynamics that BMW always had in its genes. And on the other hand, it's bringing the digital experience and the digital life fully integrated, seamless, convenient into the car. I give you one example, I think. When now it's wintertime and you drive with our new cars through the area, then the sensors will say, hey, it's 3 degrees above zero. You might want to change your winter tires now because you're still driving summer tires. The exciting part is in 2018 we will have the car already talking to the driver and vice versa. And this is what I see, a totally different way of man-machine interface in the future.
What sort of bits of technology in a very easy way that are you using?
Well, for example, we are using obviously the cloud because the cloud provides our vehicles to be always connected with our drivers.
What does connectivity actually mean for customers in a practical sense?
For example, you just say, okay, this morning was freezing. I just put on my iPhone, heat up the car. Then if I come to the car, it's already nice and cozy. Everything is ready. The car knows that I'm coming and not my wife. She's also using the car. So the seat is right. Everything is already in the right position. I know, oh, this is the best way to the office because all my data is already integrated in the navigation system. All these things I get convenient on my iPhone even if I'm not in the car. Another piece of technology, is what we call remote software update. So now and in the future, with every car that we produce, we are always able to make an update that you are used to from a smartphone. Then there's always a SIM card in every car embedded, because you need maybe at one point the car connect to maybe a toll road, and the car pays by itself.
At the same time as producing cars with state-of-the-art digital tech, BMW has been introducing something new: mobility services. BMW's Now family offer 4 services. Drive Now, a car-sharing service, is running profitably in many European cities.
Then for the US, we have Reach Now, and we started in Seattle and in Brooklyn by having a different system where we have car sharing and taxi driving integrated into one system. Then Park Now, it's a service where we can say, okay, you can already reserve a parking spot, or you can identify one on-street parking spot. Charge Now, like how can I find the right charging spot? And all these systems are mobility service systems. I call it car as a service.
BMW is one of the world's great automotive companies. It's been around for a long time, over 100 years. But I'm off to see a company which has been around for just a handful of years, and yet it has managed to change the way we travel around cities all over the world. Since its launch in 2009, Uber has been disrupting the traditional business model of the taxi company, not without some opposition. And this is how it works. Customers use an app on their phone to order a car. They get an estimated arrival time and a cost, and then they can track their car on a map. Now, I'm off to Uber's London headquarters, and I can see my car is arriving now.
Welcome to our London headquarters.
Thank you very much.
Fred Jones has been Uber's head of cities UK since 2015.
What do you think is so disruptive about the business? What makes it a disruptive element?
Well, I think what we've seen is our service has really unlocked a kind of latent demand for convenient, affordable, reliable transport around a city. What we've brought is real efficiency and transparency to that marketplace. So when you push a button, you can see it's just going to take a couple of minutes. You know who's coming to pick you up. Because we can keep the driver really busy, really highly utilized, they can make great money, but also we can keep the fares low for passengers. So that efficiency, I think, is what's really disruptive.
And in achieving what you have, how key has digital technology has been?
Well, I think it's been essential. So, one of the keys to our rapid growth is we're able to go to, every different city around the world, and every city is different, and use the same digital tools, configure it to that system, tailor the system very easily to make it work for that city. Ultimately, we're about getting people from A to B. So in Croatia, we have Uber Boat. So, get off at the airport, instead of taking a normal vehicle, maybe get stuck in traffic to the city centre, your meeting, your hotel, you can use Uber Boat, bypass that. And also, in some of our cities, say in India, you can get Uber Moto. So rather than getting on a car, you can jump on the back of a motorbike or a rickshaw, cut your way through traffic. And it's another service that's tailored to that city, but all built off the same platform.
Do you feel that you have had to innovate and invent new technologies, or is it a case of bringing together existing technologies and maybe using them in a slightly different way? Or
well, I think there's some certainly foundational technologies that our service relies on. The rise of the smartphone, clearly GPS technology, battery life, etc. like that. But we've certainly innovated a lot in some of the, particularly the dispatch software behind around how we can allocate jobs and trips to drivers.
So run me through some of the digital tech you're using then.
So we've got a lot of sophisticated tools behind the scenes that you don't really see. So one of the big investments that we're making at the moment is around mapping and building our own maps in every city that we operate globally, so that your driver can take a better route around the city, optimize the pickup, which side of the road, which junction, there's a better lay-by and safer lay-by just down the road or around the corner to be picked up. So really use that data, that mapping data, and tailor it for the Uber experience.
You're clearly one of the most famous disruptors in the ground transportation sector, but there are others. There's Get, there's Lyft. So you're not here alone. How do you try to distinguish yourselves?
Well, I think when we step back and look at what is Uber trying to achieve, actually we're not really competing with Get or Lyft or other minicab companies. We're competing with individual car ownership and use. So we want to provide a reliable and affordable alternative to using your own car. And it's pretty cool. If we can achieve that, some really good things happen. So think of the million cars, individual cars that still drive into London every day, and the congestion that caused, the pollution that caused, the space that's taken up having to store these vehicles in central London in the middle of the cities at train stations. So if we can get people out of their individual cars into Uber, not only is it great for consumers, but there's also really positive impacts for cities as well.
Are you not in competition with public mass transportation as well?
I actually don't think we are. And what we've seen when we've looked at the data is when people leave their own car at home and take an Uber, actually they're more likely to take public transport. So they'll take the train or the night tube home most of the way, and then they'll get the Uber just for the last mile if it's dark or raining or something like that. So actually there's a really complementary intermodal element to how people get around cities and use the Uber service.
The way we travel in our increasingly congested cities is changing at an astonishing pace. And of course, we need to ensure that there are adequate regulations to cover the way vehicles operate and the way personal data is collected in new services that are being rolled out. So in part 2, we'll look at what the regulations are and how companies are addressing them. All areas of ground transportation are being affected by innovations in digital tech, and that means there are many changes for the regulators to stay ahead of.
So how does Jens Monsees view the regulatory challenges for BMW?
Regulatory issues will drive and influence our industry a lot. So for example, autonomous driving at the end of the day is more a regulatory question than actually a technology question. Technology is moving first, and then the regulator normally reacts.
So how are the regulators dealing with the arrival on our streets of autonomous vehicles? Over in Paris, Philippe Christ is project manager at the International Transport Forum.
There are no rules right now, international rules, on how to regulate automated vehicles. The safety regulation of automated vehicles will have to be the same as for regular vehicles, using the same principles. But the object of regulation may change, because whereas before the object of regulation was the driver and the material, the physical vehicle, now the object of regulation will also include the algorithms and the code that is operating in the vehicle. And it will include also, to a certain extent, the fitness of the sensor systems that are providing input to the vehicles, replacing human eyes and human ears. And that is a new space for regulation. In addition, a lot of vehicle systems are being updated through over-the-air updates. And the vehicle that may be certified at time 0 may not necessarily be the vehicle that will be operating on roads at time T+1, T+2. That gap between the time of certification when the vehicle is commercially allowed to be sold and the vehicle that's actually operating on the road is something that we have not yet put in place a regulatory framework for.
As cars become even smarter, companies like Uber are gathering more and more personal data, raising concerns about how this data is used.
Only recently, I think, you were hacked, 50 odd million customers' data somehow leaked after that. Doesn't give people confidence that you're able to look after that properly.
It's a valid concern about technology companies. I think what's important about the specific Uber case is, it doesn't appear that any of the information that was taken from Uber found itself in the public domain. But it is important that we secure that data and do take the responsibilities that we have very seriously.
You collect a lot of data about people's driving experiences. Is that something that consumers should be concerned about?
No, first clear statement, all data belongs to the customers, all personal data. The main guiding principle here is where can we offer a service, a convenience, or solve a pain point. And if we can do this with data, and if the customer agrees that this is the right thing to do, then he will have an advantage in exchange of data.
The customer data generated by companies like BMW and Uber are now being sought after by other parties.
One of the things we've seen is the knowledge about what's taking place on streets, on roads, has shifted from the public sector to the private sector. Now, instantaneously, several companies know better what's happening on city streets, and public authorities who are mandated to manage those streets and manage transport infrastructure investment don't have that insight. And the question there often is from the regulator to the company, give us your data. We need your data.
So how is BMW responding?
We have to distinguish. There are personal data and there are public data. Public data is, when I have anonymous data about how cars are moving, how fast they're moving. And this we need to share with smart cities. Same that the smart city is sharing the data with us. Then we can avoid traffic jams and all this.
The data that we're able to hold on how a city moves can have extraordinary value for city planners out there. So one of the tools we've built is actually called Uber Movement. We're rolling it out in cities across the globe this year. And what it allows city planners or anyone to look on aggregated, anonymized basis, journey times and different data points around the city and how long it takes to get between different places, what happens if we close a road, what's the impact of that. This is something of extreme value and something that we're really looking forward to building and sharing more with city planners.
Regulation in ground transportation is essential to ensure customer safety, but mapping out a regulatory framework for the future is a major task, given the rapid pace of change in this industry. In part 3, we'll be looking towards a science fiction future. It might be here faster than you think.
By 2030, 60% of the world's population is predicted to be living in cities, and the challenges of urban mobility will bring different kinds of vehicles and different kinds of mobility services. Autonomous vehicles will begin to populate our streets, moving as time goes by through different levels of autonomy. BMW has recognised 5 levels, moving from different degrees of driver assistance up to level 5 when the driver becomes a passenger.
In the moment we are developing towards level 3. We will come with our iNext in 2021, which is an exciting, very exciting year for us, because then we have all these services integrated, we have level 3 integrated, and then our first car comes out and it will be a real masterpiece. And this, I think, is very, very important always to have in our heads as we are developing these cars and this future, to actually anticipate this experience and the demand of what the customer then wants. Because as soon as the car is driving autonomous, he can do other things. So what do we offer in this case?
Autonomous vehicles are also on the agenda at Uber.
I think it's clear that if you can get an autonomous service like Uber's operating at scale, you can dramatically reduce the costs. And so we made a decision, do we want to be part of that change and shape the introduction of that technology, or do we want to have that change kind of thrust upon us? So we really wanted to be part of that evolution. And so now if you're in Phoenix, you can push a button and get a self-driving Uber to come and pick you up. At the moment, it's still got someone behind the wheel, an engineer keeping on eyes on things. So in 2019, we've committed to buy 24,000 Volvo SUVs that we're going to equip with our autonomous driving technology and start to roll out on the Uber app. Another evolution of the autonomous vehicle is around trucking and freight. So we have an Uber freight service. So we've already delivered the world's first commercial shipment of beer, no less, in the States. But this is just another application of the autonomous technology that we're working hard on, and we see huge potential in the next couple of years.
What is Jens Monsies's vision of the future driving experience for a BMW customer?
For me, the future is that technology enables our customers to enjoy their drive even more. If you have a free road, hey, there's nothing more exciting than to drive fast, and all the passive systems are taking care of that you will not leave the road in a kind of steep curve. The other part is then premium convenience, as I call it. So if you are stuck in a stop and go on the highway in the morning to work, commuting, then the car takes over and says, relax. You can work, you can prepare your next Skype call, you can see your presentation, you can sleep.
And we'll be charging our cars rather than filling their tanks with petrol or diesel.
One of the really exciting things at this moment is just the clarity and unity around that vision for electric vehicles. Not just from firms like Uber, but we've seen recent announcements from OEMs committing to developing electric vehicles. I'm sure we'll see advances in battery technology. The costs of running those vehicles will fall dramatically, and the cost of producing them. So I really think it's going to happen, and probably happen quite quickly.
When we look to the future, and not that far into the future, because you have electric cars right now, for the customer, 12 models, right? So for the customer in the future, isn't the problem the lack of infrastructure to support it?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, at the beginning, yes, clear yes, but this is now solved for two reasons. We get more and more charging points. First, the infrastructure is building up fast. Second, with high power charging now, it gets even more convenient. And this is the main point, the range, the reach of individual cars, it's improving.
Uber has a vision for a rather different kind of electric vehicle.
So we're actually working on bringing autonomous vertical and takeoff electric flying vehicles that you can summon very much like an Uber X, push a button, get a vehicle, come pick you up to take you in between cities. And this is something where we're working with a variety of stakeholders kind of internationally to bring this technology about, including NASA. And we've set the ambitious goal that we're going to start piloting this service in 2020 and then roll it out as a mainstream service in 2023.
I mean, that's very quick. You're talking about electric vertical takeoff machines in the space of a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the really exciting opportunity here, and it's something that I think's captured the imagination of a lot of people. And like I say, it's going to be a real team effort to bring this technology to fruition. But we've set this bold aim and this bold mission, and we're really excited about the next couple of years.
Ground transportation systems in the 21st century are facing massive new challenges because of increased congestion, worsening air qualities, and increased populations in the cities. But companies investing and innovating in the digital sphere are coming up with new technologies and new solutions which will radically transform the transport experience of the future. They say we'll even have flying cars. For the moment, I'm in this fully electric earthbound one. Now I live in London, which is sort of that way. Thank you.
I.O.T, powering the digital economy. Brought to you by Schneider Electric.